What's up, everybody? I'm Benjamin Wolf, and welcome to the Wolf's Den. Can I create the songs and sounds that my friends and family come up with for me? Let's find out today on the Music Production Challenge I like to call What's in the Box. So this time I pulled industrial. This is going to be the first time attempting an industrial song, so I had to do a little bit of digging and research to find out what makes a song industrial. It seems that industrial is an umbrella term with lots of different songs and song types that fit into the term industrial, with songs like Closer by 9 Inch Nails to songs like Du Hast by Rammstein and Headhunter by Front 242. Some common themes for industrial music are aggressive sounds, a dark and cold tone, electronic and rock instruments blended, provocative or edgy lyrics, and music that goes against the grain of pop. Before we dive in to see how the song was created, let me show you a quick preview of the track. While doing the research on the industrial tracks, I noticed a lot of them having a lot of metallic sounds and percussion as part of the song, so I knew I wanted to start there and have that a real driving feature in my track. So knowing that I wanted a metallic sound in my percussion, I was searching through some sound libraries, and inside of Damage, I came across Perc Dumpster, which sounds like a lot of metallic sounds. Somebody's hitting the side of a dumpster, which I thought was really cool for the industrial type of music. After messing around with a pattern for a little while, I came up with this. There's some lower tones that I sort of use as the bass or the kick drum, and these two kind of go back and forth between each other to give it a different tone. And then these higher sounds kind of act as the snare. And I use this sort of as a hi-hat. I also had to incorporate some electronic type drums into this pattern to give it a more constant and thumping sound. So I messed around with some loops, and I also added a real kit afterwards to give it the full drum sound. This is just a kick and a snare going back and forth. I was happy with this, but I felt like it needed a little more realism to it, so I added a really compressed drum kit, acoustic drum kit, behind all this to add another layer of the sound. And together these three blended to make a really cool drum sound for the industrial type of music. I ended up grouping those three layers into a drum bus. That way I could combine them all together, and I added a little bit of extra compression to make them all glue together. After settling on some drums and percussion, I wanted to lay down a driving bass line. The bass line I came up with consists of two basses. It has a real bass and a electronic bass. The theme behind this bass line was to have a darker tone to it, by going back and forth between the C and the C sharp. That gives kind of a scary sound. And I also wanted it to be really driving, like a driving bass line. So it's a bunch of eighth notes. And it never skips, just eighths all the way through. And this whole song is based off a C harmonic minor scale with a flat second. The acoustic bass I went with is from the Scarby Rickenbacker bass library in Contact, with the double treble preset. And on the electric side of the sound, we have Serum. So as you can see, this is also pulsing in eighths. I have the LFO set to the filter. So it's applying that low pass filter. The LFO is also controlling the position of this monster preset. After having a bass line down that I felt had the right vibe and feel for the song, I wanted to add more sounds for the chorus. So in industrial, you have electronic sounds and rock sounds. So for the chorus, I wanted to add more of the rock element with some electronic guitar. I decided to go with a power chord feel, just following along with that bass line. The first go round does the power chords, and the second time it just follows the bass line exactly, plucking along with the bass line. And a power chord is just the first note and the fifth note in that chord. You omit the third because that makes it a major or minor, which technically it's neither. It's just the first and the fifth. And I have two guitars playing together so I can pan them hard left and hard right, and it gives it a wider sound. On one of the sides, I have the Electric Sunburst guitar on high gain rock school preset. And on the other side, it's high gain classic rock. For the second part of the chorus, the next 8 bars, I wanted to add a little bit of more melodic sound. But still building on that tension between that C and the C sharp. And to add some layers to the sound to give it a more mechanical feel, an electronic feel, I added a synth behind it. Really simple, I didn't want to overtake the guitar. And for the metallic sounds, I also use something from the Contact library called Kinetic Metal. This one's called Copper Membranes. And this sound actually plays through the whole song, even in the verses. But instead of following that electronic guitar in that chorus, it just plays a single note in the verse. And it constantly just repeats hitting this G. And that's the 5th note in the scale, so it gives it a lot of tension the whole time. Behind that, I got a sound called Black Cauldron from the same Kinetic Metal library. And as you could hear, that adds a lot of texture to the song, A lot of weird little glitchy sounds to it. It really fits that industrial style. By itself, it kind of sounds hard to listen to, but blended in with everything, I think it gives it a really nice texture. And lastly, I think there's one more layer to this sound, which is just an antique typewriter from Kinetic Metal. It's very quiet in the mix. I may even have to turn it up for you to hear. But it's adding that typewriter mechanical sound behind everything. After adding those mechanical sounds to the chorus, I knew I wanted the chorus to have more impact when it came in, so I added these transitions. In these transitions, I have those mechanical sounds playing a melody line. But as you can see, this is just a ascending line with the lower notes of this tone going up in that scale I was telling you about. That it's basically C harmonic minor with that flat second with some tension building strings. And this string sound is from Spitfire Audio called Fragile String Evolutions, which you just hold the note and it slowly builds up and creates clusters and these crazy chaotic sounds. After having this Fragile Strings Evolution in the transitions, I manipulated it and added it as a background kind of drone sound to create some atmosphere, and that's what this sounds like. And a lot of these sounds, you'll notice I have pumping, like a pumping sound to it. That's created by the synchronous sidechain effect that's inside of Reason. Some of them are set to full wet. Some of them are set to around 50%. Just depends on the sound. But this one I had 100% wet with the sidechain. And I created this sound by converting this to an audio track and reversing it and running it through a effects processor, the Isotope Trash. And it's running through an impulse response called Badger. Also in the second part of this chorus, I have another electronic guitar playing this really simple line. It's just an ascending, it kind of pitch bends up a little bit. I also created two instances of that and put one left, one right to create that wide sound as well. After adding sounds to the chorus to distinguish it from the verses, I wanted to lay down some vocals. About 90% of the songs I heard while doing research for Industrial had vocals in them, and most of the lyrics had dark subject matter to match the edgy sound of the music. I also knew I could get really creative with things like distortion and effects. These vocals consist of 3 layers.
I wish I would have made a stand. You've never lived.
So this first layer, the main layer, is running through a de-esser, then into a Pro Q3 to tame some of the mid-range and some low end.
Your hand on my mother. I wish.
After that, it's going into a compressor.
I wish I would have made a stand.
The first compressor was to help build a tone. The second compressor is to tame some more of the transients.
I would have made a stand.
Then it's going into this Oxford inflator, which adds a little bit of intensity to the sound. It adds saturation.
I wish.
This is where the sound really starts to get its tone from, is the effects racks. It's going into the decapitator to get a lot of distortion, and then into this micro shift. And what that does is creates a detune effect to the vocal and makes it sound wider. Then finally after that, it's going into fresh air to give it some more high end and some mid range.
I would have made a stand.
I'm going to toggle off this effect rack, the one with the distortion and the micro shift, to show you what that's doing to the vocal.
I wish I would have made a stand. You'd never lay your hand on my mother. I wish.
I wanted to show you that one toggled on and off because that's the one really making the impact of what the vocal sounds like, all the distortion and the pitch shifting.
I wish I would have made a stand. You'd never lay your hand.
The vocal's also getting sent to a send effect, which is another impulse response. And it's called Pig under Trash 2. And this is giving it a little bit of an echo that has a metallic sound to it.
I wish I would have made a stand. You'd never lay your hand on my mother. I wish you'd never grab the bottle. You always went for.
The other 2 layers of the vocal have a really harsh sound to them, but they're over top this first layer. So by themselves, they don't sound that great. But what they do is create this growling effect to the vocal, which I really liked.
My mother, I wish you'd never grab the bottle. You always went full throttle.
And to get this sound, it was 2 layers of the same vocal, 2 different takes. I picked and choose which words I wanted to put this effect over. And then it gets ran through a vocal synth, and I believe this preset was called Death Metal. You could see it really distorts and makes it crazy to where there's no tone to the vocal at all. It almost sounds like a whisper but a growl at the same time, and that goes over top of this first layer of the vocal. It gives it that growl sound to it, and I have 2 layers of that. It really makes certain words in that vocal phrase stand out, and it gives it a harsher sound. And for the chorus vocal, it's not much. It's 1 word right before the drop, I didn't want to fill in the chorus with a lot of melody vocals. I wanted the instrumentation to really speak for the song. So it just has a drop of that one little phrase of I wish. And that still consists of those 2 harsh layers with the 1 main layer. And then I added, for the last chorus, I have 2 more vocals. And that's just a more sung phrase of I wish. And then it has all these effects on top of it, which is this Audiomatic inside of Reason. It's set to the cracked preset, and it toggles the dry and wet, which gives it that circuitry sound to it. I just have that automation within Reason. I also have another effect going through it called Broken Repeater through the synchronous in Reason. That's also toggled with automation. And that gives it that glitchy sound towards the end. And I also just have a filter for the vocal because in the build up right before the chorus, I have that same vocal as kind of a preemptive vocal going into this chorus. And it's just really muted with the filter. Cuts off all the top end. The song also has a lot of ear candy little sound effects hidden in the background, stuff to help the transitions out. So throughout the whole thing, I have this sound here, which is basically a vinyl scratch. And it's also running through this isotope trash called Metal Bowl as an impulse response. So it's a crackle from a vinyl machine, which I could bypass. So that crackle when ran through this impulse response creates a really metallic sounding sound that I think it creates this atmosphere behind everything. It's a little bit of ear candy. Another ear candy sound I have throughout some of these transitions and breakdowns was a sound I called Madness. And this sound was a sound within Mysteria inside the Contact libraries. It's basically a cluster effect with voices. They start with whispers on this side, and then it slowly moves up to more chaotic sounds as you do automation, and I just bounce that down into audio. That's going to do it for this challenge. Thank you for watching all the way through to the end. It always helps the channel out if you like, comment, or subscribe, which is free with a free YouTube account. These challenges help inspire me and to get me out of my comfort zone. And hopefully it does the same for some of you as well. The next video will probably be a tutorial in Reason 12, so if you're a Reason 12 user, leave the next video suggestion in the comments. As always, I'm going to play the song uninterrupted in its entirety. Thanks again. See you next time.